like to get to fundamentally though, what would be different than what's happening now? So it would have to be voluntary then, though, right? Because it's not a forced mechanism. It's some kind of collective communal effort that doesn't oppress people in any way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, part of it, I mean, I don't claim to have all the details of how it could all work out, but I've imagined, right? Rather than for a guy to, for someone to start a business, you know, you either got to work and save in one way or have investors in some way to get you started, it, depending on what it is, I guess. The point is if
It
you
just
can
seems like
find,
that would be the hurdle to me. Like it's a long ways off because you'd have to have people that are self-governed that actually get to that place where it would be a strong enough effort, but peaceful enough that
well,
it didn't create the end of times or something, you know?
well, self-governance is really pretty simple if we look out for each other. If people looked out for each other, we wouldn't be reliant upon the police enforcement and the jail system, prison systems, and the war systems. You know, if people
Yeah,
looked out for
I can't
people,
deny that.
if the people in government looked out for people, they'd protect the citizenry, not just in America, but around the world from the corporate greedy. They've been failing their jobs. I suggest they're derelict in their duties. And I, as a citizen, I, God, I want a chance to talk to those peoples.
It seems
And
like it'd be easy to right the ship from this perspective, right? Just a regular old person looking at it, you're like, man, this is way too complex. There's way too many opportunities for corruption and corruptible people to just be power hungry. We could simplify this. We could make it very streamlined, right? Wouldn't be that difficult.
we have everything we need, the technology. I mean, right now, there's a lot of workers who are actually afraid of how are they going to continue paying their bills because of AI and because of other things, right?
Hmm.
Well, rather than having people fighting against advancements in mechanization and technology, how about we first look out for the people, you know, and then hell, we could create a world where people don't actually have to work so hard. Seriously, where like we could have jobs created. We could leave some jobs for people to do, right? The ones that actually develop the mind, develop the body. You know, you can go to work for exercise or because you're actually doing something pretty cool, right?
It's sounding pretty apocalyptic now, I gotta say, Jack. There's a couple jobs left for, people that still want to move about and not sit in a pot all day, but
No,
it's
the
getting
other,
dark, man.
Like,
no, the
say you want
others.
to distribute. Oh, go ahead, Jack.
No, please go ahead.
I think it's a good solution for like the question that are often posed to anarchists, like how are people going to get luxury goods, right? Like, okay, you're supplying the basic needs, but what do we do about luxury goods? It goes to the people who go out of their way for and step up to do more for their community.
Bingo. And I believe if we transition from a world of top down power and this oppressive debt system, if we change the value system, we could create a community and an economy that actually rewarded those who were really doing the good things, right? Where the community chose to reward, not just because they were manipulated into purchasing something that was toxic for them and overpriced.
This is where I want to point out, Jack. This might just be a thought experiment for you to mull over, but I think everything we've ever done has been social experiments. And our biggest problem was that we often hit the point where we had a hypothesis, right? If we do free market capitalism, the markets will regulate themselves, everyone would be happy, blah blah blah. And then at some point, it proved itself to not be true, but we kept going. There was no need to do the experiment, but we stuck to it because of blind faith. And if you want to do something like this, I think it sounds great. And the best thing to do is to have a hypothesis. And even if it fails, you can revise it. You can say, okay, so
Greetings, Dave.
this, and this didn't work, but this, and this did work. So let's keep doing the things that worked, and let's do the things that didn't work differently.
Well, and it's obvious what made the train go off the tracks, right? I mean, everybody can see it.
I think different people have different opinions on that.
I have my own answer, but yeah.
Well, like free market economy, capitalism, all that, without fractional reserve banking, without funny money, a system that could amplify itself, which is that ultimate power that's going to come in and corrupt that, because it's corruptible, right? So you have to have an honest, transparent. So it have to be honest. Weights and measures couldn't be, played with that way. Not that there's still corruption that won't happen with that, but you're trying to get to the most honest system possible. So you at least have to lean towards that.
And I believe the best way to have honesty is to keep the peoples informed and transparency, right? We don't have to have layers and layers and layers of bureaucracy.
Absolutely, and that transparency comes from the people.
And, I mean, at the postal
and their
service,
oversight.
Like in the government, it's like
you have to learn how to be that oversight.
But it's funny because
let
now,
them know you're
everybody
watching
talks
them.
about crypto. They could put in honest weights and measures, some kind of open source, transparent type of currency that would exist that I guess would represent this value, and it would not be something that you could manipulate. But that's not the game plan, right? It's always about the bait and switch. That's how it was sold initially, and they're not really going to cement anything until they can have their fingers in the pie. We're all just watching that happen.
Wasn't the open source component of crypto supposed to be the blockchain?
Sure.
I think it was.
So what happened? Why isn't it transparent? Because
all right, real quick, folks, we're gonna get this thing going. I appreciate everybody watching. Hit the like, share, and subscribe. And let's get on with the willing executioner's blueprint. How modern compliance feeds tyranny. By complying and just going along to get along, that is feeding the tyranny. We need to step up and start getting involved. Like I said, it is our priority and our duty to throw off a despotic government. The only way we can do that is preemptively letting them know we are watching. That is our duty to transparency. If we do not watch them and they know we're not watching them, they're going to do whatever the hell they want. They've been doing this a long time. However, when we start watching them, they start changing, and we need to start watching them in large numbers. We saw that here with the local data center project coming in now. Now, all of a sudden, a large group of people want to get involved. This should be the norm.
Hold up, grab my soda cause I told you I'm colder than hell. I ain't buying what you sell, it don't ring my bell. Unless it's got the smell, like grape ape. We ain't talking vapes or the color of drapes. Or a gorilla in a cape is the good shit. Just one hit, you so lit, you fall into a bit, non-bit. What's fucking funny is you're a monkey, a high school flunky, hero and junkie. Obliteration of the carnation with gross castration, skewed citations by your intimation. Get real, young man, there's only one stand. You can't stand a suntan. How you gonna live on the land? Obliteration of the carnation with gross castration in skewed citations by your intimations. I'm a truth in rotation. You're a cheap imitation. Dark said hums, 808s make the ground shake. Cold as the grave, every word's a land quake. You're a flicker in the cipher, I'm the flame that won't fade. Step into the night where the shadows are made. What's fucking funny is you're a monkey, a high school flunky, hero and junkie. I'm gonna click another hit of this good shit, and I'm already it, so take over, it's been done, bitch.
Thank you for joining us at Personality Inventory Mockumentary Productions. Man up, slaves, and hit those buttons, or I'll send ice.
Oops, oops, oops. Had my green screen on. Sorry, folks. Greetings. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Coming at you with a further review on my previous series on Hitler's willing executioners and how modern society is feeding that tyranny. And they're following that blueprint that repeats itself in history. And it makes me wonder, how awake can people really get? It can be seen blatantly, a police state, everybody going by some statistic. And I read it as statist, I see. To me, it's plain. I see the patterns, I see the obviousness, but what does it take to wake people up? To bring them out of the comfort, convenience of having the ability to follow under an authority that allows them to just say, I'm just doing my job. Well, you have a greater duty to humanity than just some employment to take home a check to feed your children. See, that's paying tribute to a false patriarch, no matter how you look at it. And when you learn how to self-govern, you learn how to detach from that stuff. You learn how to detach from the institution of a grocery store and take upon the manual labor, the sweat and dirt under your fingernails to do it your own damn self. Different ways of providing and still have the same value without the great expense. When you start expending your own energy and learning how to appreciate that more, you'll see it has a greater value. And you're doing a greater duty as a steward to the earth. So let's get into it. Just like I did some research on the paradigm shift that I see in the metaverse here, with people coming from the news platforms, leaving the news media and starting channels. Even President Trump got involved with doing some YouTube and stuff like that. He's on Twitter and X and all that. As well as people from this platform getting in the commercial arenas, like we see Andrew Wilson on the Don Lemon Show and various others. I also do the research on Hitler's willing executioners, as I've explained with my previous series, and now we're doing the review. And I did a further research or review of what I put out, and wanted to make some clarification. So I hope to so I wrote it up so I can keep it all in track. Otherwise, I get skittermined and just go off on different tangents. But this is hopefully so everybody can start connecting the dots as I see them. And so I hope to clarify the parallels I see between Daniel Jonah Goldhagen's thesis in Hitler's willing executioners and modern American society. This is me looking past the surface level of politics and focusing on the behavioral psychology of the people, the very citizenry that are the very priority mechanism of that societal living. How ordinary people become the voluntary infrastructure of a restrictive police state. And I'll remind you here, for the court to obtain personal jurisdiction in this administrative realm requires a voluntary appearance. So it's the people and they're volunteering because they think it's comfort, convenient, or outside of that groupthink safe space, it's terrible and they're in fear and they don't know what to do So they hire an attorney because they don't know what they're saying. So here are 5 poignant points of similarity that challenge the listener to examine your own complicity. The normalization of identification verification is number one. Everybody buy that verification of identity by holding up that placard. I'll show you what I carry in my wallet, folks. Right there. Oops, let me get rid of my visual here. It's in my wallet. It's the only thing I carry for any kind of ID other than the local library card. And it's merely a homemade bicycle driver's license. And I'll read it off for everybody. License number 911. Birth date, young. It's hearsay. I know I was young. I'm old now. Back then, I would have been considered a baby or an infant. So obviously, reasonable. Restrictions, training wheels, class. Huh? I ain't got no class. So you can't classify me. That's class. Cool cruising kid, mom's house, somewhere, USA, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hair, lots. Height, little. Weight, not much. Eyes, 2. Expiration, when the tires pop. And this is just as valid as their ID, particularly if you don't fall into the classification to be identified as such. Personal jurisdiction is voluntary. You volunteered to be an agent for the state. In Nazi Germany, the Ahnenpass, ancestor pass, and internal passports transformed travel from a right to a state-granted privilege. Today, the transition to digital IDs and biometric real ID requirements for domestic travel creates a society where papers, please, is no longer a localized demand. It's everywhere you go. Everywhere you go. Think about it. That credit card, that debit card, it's doing the exact same thing, and we've been doing that for a long time. When the average citizen begins to view constant surveillance and documentation as safety rather than an intrusion, they have adopted the mindset of the monitored rather than its people, and they demand more and more paper regulations. The first vehicle registrations were required in 1903 by Massachusetts and Missouri. However, these initial records are simply registration certificates and did not require a driver's exam. Mandatory testing was not widely adopted until decades later, with all states requiring a license and exam only by 1959. And this is where people don't understand that license is a commercial contract, and you sign it with the Department of State, Department of Transportation at the Department of Motor Vehicles within the state. It is essentially a Department of Transportation identification number at the federal level. And registering that plate, again, voluntary, is merely registering it into the Federal Motor Vehicle Theft Prevention Act. That's all it's doing. It's all voluntary, folks. The outsourcing of enforcement to the people, number 2. Why do you suppose that is? Because now everybody's got an identification that says they got some kind of fucking authority. You ain't got no authority except for paying tribute to a false patriarch. That's what it evidences to me. It shows me that you're a taxpayer paying tribute to a false patriarch while you're claiming a Christian, Jew, or Muslim. Blasphemy. Goldhagen argued that the Holocaust succeeded because ordinary Germans voluntarily participated in the social ostracization of their neighbors, What do you think all these social platforms are doing? What do you think all the drama is about? See, there's that part of the paradigm shift. See, a lot of this drama stuff is going into major platforms using blood sport debating. Blood sport before debate means it's blood sport. And that's why they use all the ad hom character assassination attacks. That's not debating. That's fifis. That's not sticking with true opinions backed by reason and logic. So we got to start thinking about this stuff, folks. Like I said, you're doing it and you're doing it voluntarily against each other. In the modern US, this is mirrored by the culture of digital denunciation. YouTube demonetizes you. Oh, goodness. People strike your channel. Oh, goodness. Those aren't government people. Those are people in their fifis, fighting for the character platform, seeking validation of having some kind of worth because they pay more in taxes or some shit. Whether through reporting neighbors for compliance issues or the social canceling of dissenting voices like my own, the state no longer needs a secret police on every corner when it has a population willing to monitor and punish one another via social media and community reporting apps. Snafu and so many others that tell you that is what they are doing. Think. They're in their fifis and don't know what they're doing. Number 3, the dehumanization of the non-compliant. A police state cannot function without a clear other, the bad guy. Nazi society used pseudoscience to categorize people. America uses the same thing to classify people, as well as categorize them. Same thing. Matter of fact, I think they even use the term categorize in their contract code. Modern society often uses institutional wellness or safety metrics to bifurcate the population. That's the divide, the separation. They use that to separate people. So they have these incidences like Renee Good and Mr. Plenty or whatever his name was. Who was right? Who was wrong? Ain't none of it should have happened. Like a video I saw this morning, evidently somebody was suspected of shoplifting Pampers, for crying out loud. And somehow a 1-year-old baby got shot. Should have never happened. There's an identification system that we have in place that you can use to track them down. That shooting never should have happened. When you begin to view your fellow citizen as a biological threat, remember the masks? That happened before, 1921 flu pandemic. They just did it to you again because you weren't there. You didn't remember. Doesn't matter how many times people like me will tell you that it's already happened and this is what it is. You're still going to fearmonger. When you begin to view your fellow citizen as a biological threat or a danger to our democracy, our democracy, based on their refusal to follow specific mandates, you are participating in the exact same psychological othering that allowed German ordinary men to justify the removal of rights from their peers, the bad guys, even though they didn't do anything wrong. 4, the way they do it, they used to do subliminal messaging on TV and they outlawed it. So now they do the same kind of thing, but what they do is they change the language. It's called semantic manipulation and euphemism. The Nazi state utilized Sprachregelung, language regulation, to mask reality, using terms like special treatment for execution. hey, get that one over there. He's going for special. He's going to get some special treatment. He needs some special treatment. He's bad off. We'll give him some special treatment. Today, American society is saturated with technocratic euphemisms. Wars are kinetic actions. Censorship is content moderation, all you blue wrenches out there. An erosion of privacy is user experience optimization, in case you aren't aware of the algorithm and how it works. When a population adopts the state's vocabulary, they lose the ability to describe the reality of their own subjugation, becoming willing participants in their own cognitive capture. And then the last one, fifth, is the eliminationist mindset in ideology. Goldhagen's central point, and we'll get to some of these comments here when I'm done here. Goldhagen's central point was that Germans didn't just follow orders, they believed in the necessity of eliminating a perceived threat. We see a modern echo in the refusal of civil discourse. If you find yourself believing that a certain segment of population is so irredeemable that their voices should be silenced or their livelihoods stripped away for the greater good, you have crossed the threshold from neighbor to executioner. That's your complicity. It's because you fail to maintain oversight of what is true and correct in the government and simply sit back under that authority, just doing your job. The moment you stop seeking to persuade and start seeking to eliminate the opposition's ability to exist in the public square, the police state has already won within you. So, a question for the listener: at what point did your desire for security or moral purity or comforts and conveniences, as I speak of so much, override your commitment to your neighbor's inherent freedom? If the state asked you to point to the finger today, would you do it for the sake of the common good? Even if the common good would be a detriment to self or loved one? Where do you draw the moral line? Do you draw it at the paycheck? Do you draw it at the religion? Where do you draw it? So let me set this up. Because I got one more for you here before we get into the comments. Didn't have this prepared, my apologies. Not going to work that way. So, what it is with YouTube here, but it's not allowing me to just open it, play it that way. I got to go the other way. And so for all you other people out there, kudos.
What you looking at? You're all a bunch of fucking assholes. You know why? You don't have the guts to be what you want to be? You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. So what'd that make you? Good? You're not good. You just know how to hide, how to lie. Me, I don't have that problem. Me, I always tell the truth, even when I lie. So say goodnight to the bad guy. Come on. The last time you're going to see a bad guy like this again, let me tell you. Come on. Make way for the bad guy. There's a bad guy coming through. Better get out of his way. Man up, slaves, and hit those buttons, or I'll send ice.
Okay. So let's check the comments out. We got And thanks everybody for stopping in. We got grand manifestations in here. Best wishes for everyone. Ian Coke Dog, thanks. The Chatter King, Brother Peril, Hotep. Hotep means peace. And it is more profitable for them to operate in fraud and get that check than it is to be a man or a woman. It is. If they understood through their own moral turpitude, their complicity in it, and actually stood to it as a true man or woman should, I wouldn't have to wear this fucking mustache to remind them. How about a bicycle traveler's license? That's what I got. That's what I got. Problem is they stopped teaching the trivium long ago. Without grammar, logic, and rhetoric, people become pawns. Correct. Yeah, you have to be able to know the grammar, the logic, and then the rhetoric, which is the grammar in the various different venues. So that when they present this legal documentation, you can see the change in the rhetoric and how they're trying to squirm around. It's a very twisting language, this English language. It's known as a vehicular language, matter of fact, if you want to learn your true travel rights and learn how to speak appropriately. Yes, actually qualify. Yes, so baby got murdered for somebody stealing some pamper diapers. Another incident where evidently she was in her car driving through the parking lot and headed for an officer. The officer thought she was going to run him over, so instead of jumping out of the way, he felt it necessary to shoot her. So don't know what they're thinking today. Yeah, cloth diapers have long time been a homemade thing. You know, that's a traditional thing. And then when people gave up the traditional thing of washing cloth diapers and not having to put in a further expense and actually appreciate the value of the young lady that made the cloth diapers, it was part of the dowry, in fact. Cloth diapers were part of the dowry in traditional common law marriages. The dowry wasn't a gift, it was a preparation. In the traditional Christian upbringing, the man and woman that was bringing up a daughter would bring her up with this dowry, which was her talents in preparation for two becoming one. In other words, herself going out as an independent woman in the world and finding a mate and having things prepared already to be able to take care of a child that he was prepared to take care of on his side by mom and dad bringing him up in the ways of a young man, trades and things like that, to be able to bring resources into the home for that provision and protection. And these were the different duties and traditions and roles of that tradition. That's long gone by the wayside. Everybody's given up all tradition and still placates at this traditional Christian that is living in this modern society and sinning with all of its comforts and conveniences, particularly by paying tribute to the false patriarchs, as they have to. And they're sitting there saying, okay, just like I presented to the Catholic preacher that was wearing a mask during this pandemic shit. And I asked him, I said, can I ask you a couple of questions? He said, sure. I said, you're the father of the local church, right? He says, yeah. I said, you're pretty familiar with the scripture, right? He says, yeah. I said, well, what about Genesis 2:7, where it says, God formed man of the dust of the ground? And when he breathed the breath of life into his nostrils, that man became a living soul. So, yeah, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. And I have no shame in saying it. The man standing at the pulpit, preaching his interpretation of those very scriptures, should have been teaching those people that, hey, if God says this, then why would you pay tribute to a false patriarch that says otherwise? Why would you restrict the breath of life that allows that voice to be made loud and clear to those, quote, governing authorities, unquote? See, you've given up your power. That's your complicity. You fail to maintain the oversight that is your duty to do so. just like it is your duty when you're bringing up your children. You have an authoritative duty, and you gave that up to your children as well, to public education and public health care systems. You know not what you do. Why you sit there and, well, I'm a good Christian, you go to church every Sunday. So anyway, thanks to everybody. And let's get into the review. We've got part, what is it? Part 12. So let's go over and share that tab instead and bring that up. And remember, folks, hit the like, share, and subscribe button. There is a PayPal button down there below for anybody that's interested in sharing some love. All is appreciated. We are having a very rough time here, at least lately, because of a recent constructive eviction. So every little bit is helpful. 5, 10, 15, 20 bucks, whatever. All appreciated. Hit that dono button and help out.
Touch any of that stuff. This is my house. Ma'am, you
newly released security video. This is posted by that local Kansas newspaper, Marion County Record. And what you're looking at is police.
This is a newspaper. This is the lady that owns the newspaper. And they're coming into her house to search her record. Supposedly some kind of warrant or something. I don't know. Or interest. Even if there is no warrant, they have no, they're trying to silence the very people that are speaking the truth. Pay attention.
Raiding the home of that paper's 98-year-old co-owner and the mother of the editor of the paper, Joanne Meyer. She collapsed and died the day after the raid.
get out of my house. Get out. Stand outside. You can stand outside that door and still see him. I don't want you in my house.
How many computers do you have in the house, man?
I'm not going to tell you. Get out of my way.
It's all right.
I want to see what they're doing.
Well, they're working.
Police said they raided it over claims that the newspaper had obtained information illegally. The paper has consistently denied that. This search warrant
Obtained information illegally. Let's break that down, folks. Obtained information having to do with government business illegally. See, there's already supposed to be government oversight. There's already supposed to be that visual oversight of being able to look at those records. See, your First Amendment right, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, freedom of speech. See, that inherently is a great right, folks. But exponentially, the greater right is your right to know. And when they try to silence that, beware. Beware, it's a statist, complete police state, statist, I see, and you're going to be one of the numbers if you don't.
we should note, that was used to raid the home and the paper's office. It has since been withdrawn, and the items seized have been returned. The Kansas Bureau of Investigations is looking at the entire incident.
Absolutely. Withdrawn and everything given back without a fight. Of course, it was after she died, so she couldn't fight. See, putting old people into health stress syndrome like that, oh yeah, these people are all ready and should be labeled murderers. I'm sorry if you don't like my rhetoric, but you'll have to deal with it. It's just my opinion.
You touch any of that stuff. This is my house.
Ma'am.
Newly released security video. This is posted by that local Kansas newspaper, Marion County Record. And what you're looking at is police raiding the home of that paper's 98-year-old co-owner and the mother of the editor of the paper, Joanne Meyer. She collapsed and died the day after the raid.
Get out of my house. Get out. Stand outside. You can stand outside that door and still see him. I don't want you in my house.
How many computers do you have in the house, man.
I'm not gonna tell you. Get out of my way.
It's all right.
I want to see what they're doing.
People need to behave like this old woman. Stay the fuck out of my business. You ain't got no right in it.
Well, they're working.
Police said they raided it over claims that the newspaper had obtained information illegally. The paper has consistently denied that. This search warrant, we should note, that was used to raid the home and the paper's office, it has since been withdrawn, and the items seized have been returned. The Kansas Bureau of Investigations is looking at the entire incident.
Don't you touch any of that stuff. This is my house.
Ma'am.
You
Newly released security video. This is posted by that local Kansas newspaper, the Marion County Record. And what you're looking at is police raiding the home of that paper's 98-year-old co-owner and the mother of the editor of the paper, Joanne Meyer. She collapsed and died the day after the raid.
get out of my house. Get out. Stand outside. You can stand outside that door and still see him. I don't want you in my house.
How many computers do you have in the house, man?
I'm not gonna tell you. Get out of my way.
It's all right.
I want to see what they're doing.
Well, they're working.
Police said they raided it over claims that the newspaper had obtained information illegally. The paper has consistently denied that. This search warrant, we should note, that was used to raid the home and the paper's office.
Shit, my apologies. I was wanting to say, you know, that's that digital denunciation. They start silencing your voice. And like I said, this lady, people need to start doing that. Speak out vehemently like she was. That First Amendment freedom of speech is a great thing. Freedom of expression, freedom of the press, individually. But exponentially, the greater right is everybody else's right to know. And when they start silencing one, they silence one voice, then they deafen thousands and thousands of ears.
Office. It has since been withdrawn, and the items seized have been returned. The Kansas Bureau of Investigations is looking at the entire incident.
Greetings, Danielle. How you doing tonight, brother?
Shalom, shalom. Doing all right. How about yourself?
Good, good, good. As we saw in the video, folks, a 98-year-old woman was standing up with the only thing she had left in life, and that's her voice. And these people that placate that they respect their elders stood around and talked down to her because they were just doing their job. This is Hitler's willing executioners. And I guarantee you, if that woman would have raised a cane, they'd have probably killed her. This is sick. This is psychotic. And I urge you to start teaching your children how to speak out. Teach them how to communicate appropriately. Teach them how to observe, record, and report. See something, say something. But in between that see something, say something, make sure you know what you're observing so you can say it appropriately. What we've got going on in this country today is based in the very lowest level of jurisdictions, and that's the municipality, the local ordinances that placate that the police have any kind of authority whatsoever, particularly when it comes to information that they say that somebody obtained illegally. Anything you see or hear, you are allowed to record and place your opinion in a public venue. So before we get started with tonight's reading, I want to thank everybody for your continued support. Please be sure to hit the like, share, and subscribe button. If you're on Keith Little, El Perro, or Hecklebus, get on over to the other two, hit that like, share, and subscribe to help the algorithms. There are PayPal links down in the details section below for anybody that would like to share some love. Always appreciate it. Every little bit counts, $10, $15, $20. I'm stuck in the doctrine of necessity until I can fix all of the paperwork myself. So until that happens, I'm still dependent upon contributions and bartering and trading. So in the meantime, we're going to get back to the Hitler's willing executioners with a little more reading on why we are the cause of our own downfall. Again, if we don't learn how to stand up and say something, then it goes unnoticed. And next thing you know, we're voting people in to do things that we wouldn't do ourselves until we're put in that position. So we're going to start out with the next section. The agents and machinery of destruction. And the machinery is your word. It is the mechanization of your vocal cords. So think about this as we continue on. What defines an institution of genocidal killing? What defines a perpetrator? An institution of genocidal killing is an institution that was part of a system of destruction. A perpetrator is anyone who knowingly contributed in some intimate way to the mass slaughter of Jews. Generally, anyone who worked in an institution of suicidal or genocidal killing. And what we have today is we have, like I've been mentioning, we've got civil rights movement, a feminist movement, gay and lesbian rights movement, transgender movement. These are all movements of classifications to help provide different classes of Hitler's willing executioners, different perpetrators. And they're all willing to perpetrate a crime against the next man because they have different ideologies.
They're all the others. It's not just one other. They've got so many categories of others now. It's pathetic. And all the categories are minute categories, percentage-wise, of the population. But they mechanize it so well.
So the more ideologies we profess, the more we destroy ourselves. Instead of getting back to the one true ideology, and that is we are all an image and likeness of each other. And we are obviously, in nature, meant to be dominant because of our very ways. We have this thought process. We have emotions. Now, I'm not saying animals don't have a thought process and animals don't have emotions, but we certainly have a higher level. We have a greater ability to adapt to different environments. You don't see any kind of creatures that adapt.
Greater sense of reason and logic, of foresight that we can enact, enable, allow, affect, effect.
As well as people. So when it comes to that adaptation, it's when we come up with diverse ways of adapting a system for our own private use. It creates a automatic anti-something else, just like we see in the Christian, the uprising.
And again, folks, this is pre-recorded, so feel free to hit the link, come up and discuss. Always open to any new ideas or concerns, complaints, comments, whatever.
So the Christianity, it created an anti-Semitism. And then in the uprising of Muslim, it created an anti-Christianity. That's all we're doing by creating a new ideology. It's a distinct line being drawn of getting rid of an old ideology. Yet we continue to hang on to each of those ideologies instead of growing beyond them and thinking that we're progressing. So in our thoughts of progressing with all these different ideologies, it's evidence on the record that we're actually digressing. And people don't see that.
Yeah, we're actually creating more degeneration. The degenerates are growing. And that's why I say, you really need to unlearn what you've learned and relearn, starting with concise English. Learn what the language is, because that's what they're using, is language manipulation. Been saying this for decades, folks. I'm the guy that used to run around with dictionaries and thesaurus in my backpack.
Know why. The next part, and this is relative to the modern 19th century, when we first started mechanizing the entire world. Modern industrial societies can, according to a variety of schemes, be conceived as being composed of different systems. And so when we think about the systems today, it's all those different jurisdictions. Those are the systems. Commonly, society is thought to be constituted of distinct political, social, economic, and cultural systems. The boundaries among these systems are sometimes difficult to determine exactly, and that's because of all the different ideologies. The boundaries of our social environment are expanded when we think about gay and lesbianism. Now they're being expanded even more with transgenderism. And they all interact with one another, yet each contains its own institutions, mode of overall organization, governing rules, formal and informal, and patterns of practice. See, the transsexual doesn't actually have the same pattern of action as a gay man or a lesbian woman. There's another step in ideology there. It's the transgender, not from being straight to gay, but actually being man to woman. So there's a different ideology, and that's why we have these scientists coming up now saying, no, you can't do that. That's a little too extensive. Yeah, you can be gay. You can feel that you're not a man and actually a woman in a man's body and have your sexual intercourse with another man. That's physically possible. You can be gay and have physical contact, sexual contact with a woman, or be lesbian and have sexual contact with a man, but still be gay. As transgender, you're posing an impossibility. A man can never have a baby. Each of these systems can also usefully be conceived as having subsystems of its own. So with the gay and lesbian, it's a subsystem of transgenderism, where the transgender guy that wants to dress up as a woman is also gay. So it's just a subsystem. Whereas back in the day, it wasn't posed as being gay or transgender if a man walked around in a woman's clothing. They just thought he was off. Now we're having a complete societal ideology that you can do that, and it's fine. Which you can dress up as a woman if you're a man, and you can dress up as a man if you're a woman. But you cannot, in fact, be or change your gender. It is an impossibility. During the Nazi period, Germany, for the first time in Western Europe, the Soviet Union had the Gulag, created a distinct new system in society, the camp system. Because when they had these systems to round people up or to segregate them or to classify them, it evolved into a greater classification. That's what we're starting with. We're creating a class of people through a new ideology. And that class of people throughout history has always been first classified and then identified in public. And then it been blamed a problem to the rest of society and segregated and then placed in encampments. It happens time and again.
And a similar process happened with the natives here on American soil, where once they were what we would call succumbed and made peaceful, they then took in large mass the native young and put them in English schools, thereby utilizing a training method for a new ideology. So their attempt is to, by intent, which can be seen, was to destroy the culture.
You think the native Indians are not in an encampment?
So pay attention. This is before Hitler. Scrambled up the process, but it's the same thing.
It's called a reservation, but it concentrates them all in one area, an encampment. What do you got on that, Danielle?
There's so many different forms of that. I'll give another example of American history where America did that. When Japan attacked Pearl Harbor, they rounded up every Asian person. Didn't matter if you were Japanese, Asian, or Chinese, Philippines. If you were Asian, you were brought into a concentration camp, or what they called at the time a deterrent camp. And it also didn't matter if you were born in the U.S. or not. Asian, you were locked up.
Yep.
Bingo.
And that's exactly right. That was one of the things that
if you think the U.S. government isn't willing to do it, you're wrong. They are. And it points out that you are willing to do it because you're the ones that allow it. You're the ones that are complicit in all this. You're the ones paying tribute to that false patriarch.
should have woken people up here in America, but it didn't. And we're still ready to go ahead and put people in gulags and concentration camps and reservations. And it's never changed. I mean, that's the exact definition of a reservation. You're separating a certain gene class of people from the rest of society. And it's totally based on looks. It's pathetic, really pathetic.
And so let's talk about segregation when it comes to race. Do you not see the similarities, folks? Do you not see how they oppose each other? Do you not see how you could effectively say, well, then give us a reservation too? If you want to be so demanding, then you have to do it. Ain't no U.S. court going to do it. Your voice has to do it.
The next one, it says, the scholarly writings about camps has generally treated them in narrow terms, focusing on their instrumental sides, particularly in their roles as instruments of violence and as sites of economic production. How quaint that they call them sites of economic production while calling them a blight on the economic production.
Exactly. So we have to really consider the playing field here and how they play people against each other with ideologies and rhetoric that oppose each other. In one statement, they can oppose themselves and people won't even notice.
You see how ignorant that is? And this is what was placated by the German people as a whole. They had no problem with it and took advantage of it as if though they were profiting because they were just doing their job. And that gave them something to do. See, if you resolve the problem, then there's not much left to do about it, is there? But if you continuously create new ideologies and new problems, you will always be able to have a job and direct somebody else under your authority to do things for you. And as long as there are people that believe they need a job to be a productive member of society, they will line up and do as you tell them.
Absolutely.
If instead the camp world is conceived of as having been a system of German society, then it becomes evident that a more multifaceted conceptualization of camps is necessary. In other words, you can't just, in American, they were so dislocated from that very thing of the encampment for their specific purposes that they were able to streamline it for their purposes, and they had to. But the rest of the world, it didn't matter, so they didn't have to take their input and streamline it for their use. So it was a limited societal use. And again, if it's being used for economic production, it's because it's a commercial society. And you lost your humanity, you lost your spirituality, and you're operating only on the manual mechanizations. The essential nature of the camp world needs to be considered, as well as the variety of instrumental practices to which it was put and expressive practices that took place within it. The camp system had 4 essential features. And when we talk about the expressive practices that took place within it, I want you to think about Guantanamo and the people down there in past years that were caught making fun of the prisoners and stripping them down naked and doing various different torture techniques. Those are private expressions. And if we let them go, they grow and become.
I want to thank Jack Calcott for the raid. So everybody make sure they go over and check out Jack Calcott. Sub up. He's got a good message. People think he's loony. I do too. But hey, if we work together, we can work out that looniness. We're all loony, right? So let's get on it. Go over and check out Jack Calcott. Thanks for the raid, brother. Appreciate it.
The norm of a public expression. Same as they publicly expressed from a private expression that the Jews were at fault through a private ideology that was then expressed in a public forum and grew. And now we have people that are now being classified, segregated, rounded up and put in encampments, tortured, and murdered. It's the same process time and again throughout history. And we're still doing it. 4 points it makes here. 1, it was a world in which Germans carried out certain violent tasks and pursued a set of concrete goals. A set of concrete goals. One of those goals was to annihilate the Jews. A greater goal in that was to take over the world. So along their annihilation of the Jews, like I said the other night, if they found other people that they classified in their ideology as going against their norm, then they too would be annihilated. They too would be classified, segregated, grouped, tortured, experimented on, and annihilated. It doesn't stop until you stop it. 2, it was a site of the freest self-expression where Germans could become masters who were not hemmed in by the Borgias restraints, which Nazism was rapidly superseding with a new anti-Christian morality. A new anti-Christian morality. It was a world in which Germans refashioned their victims to conform to their own image of them. In other words, somebody classified them as a pig, as a problem, and then they forced the Jews to accept that they were a problem. The Jews won't do that, just like Kunta Kinte and Roots refused to accept the name of a slave and step to his inherited name, his inheritance.
And this is a poignant point here I want to issue is that in Nazi Germany, they had regulations that were strictly anti-Jew that they implemented. But before they did so, they gave the Jewish population, the entire Jewish population of Germany and Austria, the notice to get out. Okay, they didn't want Jews. It was against their dogma, their ideology. So they wanted the Jews out and gave them that opportunity. And then when they surpassed that point in time where it was cut off for getting out of the country and they closed their borders, guess what? That's when all the regulation, anti-Jewish regulations came into effect, and the populace are the ones that put it in place. Okay, they're the ones that allowed it, whether it was under a dictator or not. They thought their dictator was a benevolent one and said, "Okay, we're willing to do that with you." Hitler's willing executioners.
We give up and disposition ourselves through the name itself. It's become so easy. We gladly accept a name somebody else puts on us. We gladly accept to be a, quote, patriot. We gladly accept to be a professor. We strive for a goal to be a president. We strive for these goals to be named something else that we believe is greater than the name given to us. And that's total blasphemy. Thus validating their own worldviews.
And the panel link is pinned down there. So anybody wants to join for the conversation, feel free. I would certainly appreciate it. I know I might be wrong, so come up and talk about it. Complaints, comments, concerns, whatever.
It was a revolutionary world in which the social transformation and value transmutation that were at the heart of Nazis' program were being most assiduously implemented. So what they did was they classified the Jews to declassify them as people, making their value zero. And therefore, when they were put in concentration camps and making license plates and furniture and stuff, they had an economic value then. While they were out and about in community, they had a negative economic value because they were seen as a problem. So they collected them all up, gave them zero value, and then produced an economic value out of them through their slave labor. And again, it happens repeatedly, time and time again. Welcome, Chris. How you doing tonight, brother?
Oh, greetings. How you doing? Are you hearing me well?
You are coming loud and clear.
Oh, yeah. As you're mentioning these things, and just came in my memory that I came across some interesting research information, pretty much proving that the Corporation of Germany pays tribute to the Vatican on an annual basis.
Absolutely, everyone does.
And I was thinking, well, why would that be? And the other thing is that in some
because the Vatican is the commercial center of the world. No matter what you think about religion and Catholic church and all that, it is the commercial center of the world. Lloyd's of London is the assayer. Washington, D.C. is the administrator, with military as the enforcement.
Vatican archives, I found the namesake of Adolf Hitler to be classified as a saint. And he's referred to as the late, great Adolf Hitler in those ratings.
I've not seen that, but I read about it one bit.
I was thinking, well, what is this tribute about? Where is it referred to in the Bible? That, because Hitler would have had to have done something great in the Vatican eyes to get this type of recognition, and the Corporation of Germany paying tribute and all that. And it brought my mind to reflect.
And so I'll finish the loop there for you. In case you didn't know, I think it was 1957 or so, Mussolini, dictator of Italy, was the one that granted the Vatican sovereignty. Think about that. While you think about the Unum Sanctum and the Pope's claim to have the possession of all men's souls, a blasphemous claim that didn't get its sovereignty much until late in history. I mean, it's very, very modern. Just like Israel state of Israel. It's very modern, folks. They're trying to push certain buttons and make it look like some kind of scriptural prophecies coming true and shit. We really have to pay attention to the paperwork and the words, though. When you do so, you start taking under that hat of yours, that responsibility you're supposed to have everywhere you go, instead of just doing your job, you might find a better life. You might have to humble yourself, of course, but I'm sure you'll find a better life.
Don, the narrative in the book of Job, And I'm thinking, is that what he did? Did he run the book of Job on the Jewish people? And now that's what they're doing.
Could very well be. That's an interesting.
Very interesting aspect, isn't it, folks? Like I said, they're trying to run scriptures on all those faithful believers and stuff that think they know what those scriptures are saying, and while they profess that they know what those scriptures are saying and using them on you. Is it just another kind of subliminal messaging? I mean, think about that story of Job. Isn't that what they do through this economic system? Is take every fucking thing you have little by little, one piece at a time, including your friends, family, and relatives?
Perspective. What do you think, Danielle?
I got to go through Job again. I don't have that memorized, so I can't really make a comment on that.
I've done a lot of contemplation on it, but it seems like that's what the Law Society is using, that book, to take everything that people have and
right,
take their life also.
Yeah, the concept of Job.
I was on a panel earlier talking about shame. You know, should we go back to this blueprint of shame, shaming women for being whores and stuff like that, trying to get back to a traditional Christian culture. And that's exactly what they've got you doing. Feeling shame yourself so that you can then turn around and wield it as a weapon against your neighbors by shaming them. I think the real resolve is stepping up out of that shame, being a good man, good woman, doing everything you can for your neighbor. Within reason, of course. I mean, you certainly don't starve and thirst yourself to death just to feed and drink your neighbor. It's proportional. It's that welling of the cup. When you have excess, give it. Sometimes you have excess in areas you're not really thinking about, such as advice. Sometimes you can just give advice. It doesn't have to be material. To feed a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But to teach him to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. He learns how to do it his own damn self. And that's what I'm saying, folks. You need to learn how to govern yourself so you can maintain the proper oversight of those that are trying to control you through their supposed authority, that false patriarch.
Is that the devil tests us at all times in our life. And it's because we're living through a dead probated estate that the test, at any time it pops up, that officer alongside the road can take something from you, just like the devil. So he can take from your estate anytime you let him. But if you continue to bow down and just give it to the Lord, it's not going to bother you. It's when you become.
That's that identity, the normalization of identity verification that I spoke of at the beginning of the stream. It's become so predominant, and people just willingly institute it amongst their children as if though they have to have it. That tells me you don't know the first thing about Christianity and the simple fact of know thyself.
Materialistic and set in your ways in this world, that when the devil comes and takes something from you, that it's going to bother you. So the rectification of that, or reconciliation of that, is the reconciliation of yourself and placing yourself in honor of God and making sure that you're careful to maintain good works. So your job is not work. I'm just doing my job. I know you're not careful to maintain good works who have believed in God. You're just doing your job.
That's Titus 3:8. This is a faithful saying that I will, that thou constantly affirm, that he who believed in God be careful to maintain good works. These things are good and profitable unto men. So that should be your priority in maintaining good works that are profitable and good unto men. That would be with the men and women that you are working with.
And acting like Job.
Right. That's the English language coloring the term Job as job. And the reality that you're supposed to be performing good works is that you work at a job. You work at a job. You're not in law, you're at law. You're not in work, you're at work. The same thing.
That's like in law and outlaw is also like the white and the black definitions from the law dictionary.
Correct. And real quick here, I want to remind everybody, go ahead and please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. We're going to take a quick break. And oh, wait a minute. Let me pull it up.
Man up, slaves, and hit those buttons, or I'll send ice.
I closed it out on accident. And we're going to present this for everybody again.
I'm going to let you keep on going there, Keith. I'm working on organizing my bookshelf here and listening to your. I just wanted to chime in for a second, say hi, and offer my thoughts to your venue.
You bet. Always appreciate it, brother. Always appreciate it. So we're going to go ahead and watch this again. Give people a chance to see this that didn't make it to the beginning of the video or the stream here.
I can hear that stuff.
Hey,
This is my house.
Newly released security video. This is posted by that local Kansas newspaper, the Marion County Record. And what you're looking at is police raiding the home of that paper's 98-year-old co-owner and the mother of the editor of the paper, Joanne Meyer. She collapsed and died the day after the raid.
Get out. Stand outside. You can stand outside that door and still see him. I don't want you in my house.
How many computers do you have in the house, ma'am?
I'm not going to tell you. Get out of my way. I want to see what they're doing.
Well, they're working.
Police said
See, their tactic here was to put the woman in fear. She didn't. It activated her. Get the hell out. But it probably overcharged her in that activation and she died the next day. See, older people like this are a little bit more fragile. And that doesn't mean that they're going to act fragile. I praise this woman. Rest in peace, baby.
they raided it over claims that the newspaper had obtained information illegally. The paper has consistently denied that. This search warrant, we should note, that was used to raid the home and the paper's office, it has since been withdrawn, and the items seized have been returned. The Kansas Bureau of Investigations is looking at the entire incident.
Don't you touch any of that stuff. This is my house.
Newly released security video. This is posted by that local Kansas newspaper, the Marion County Record. And what you're looking at is police raiding the home of that paper's 98.
Look at this Hugh son of a bitch right here. You suppose if he was on my ass, he'd be able to catch me? He wouldn't be able to enforce any law. The only way these people can enforce the law is to catch you in your home, shoot you, send a dog after you, because they have no investigative skills, because they don't know the law, and purport that they're not required to know the law, because they only enforce it according to what somebody else told them to do, as if though they have authority, and therefore these guys are just doing their job. They know nothing, just like Hogan's Heroes. I know nothing. I'm just doing my job. This is sick. This is psychopathic, and it is fucking dangerous to us. Their democracy is a danger to us.
Year-old co-owner and the mother of the editor of the paper, Joanne Meyer. She collapsed and died the day after the raid.
Yeah. Get out, stand outside. You can stand outside that door and still see him. I don't want you in my house.
Just to add to this video here, the son of this lady is actually suing the police department for wrongful death.
Yep, absolutely. If they would not have raided her home, she could have lived, I'm sure, at least a few more days peacefully. I mean, granted, she might have been protected for 98 years and lived a good life. But as soon as the protection force came into her home, all of a sudden she died the next day. So what kind of protection did she have that 98 years, particularly as a journalist? Remember, we've been speaking about the general journal. You have a right to journal, folks. You have a right to observe, record, and report. This is what they're trying to stop. You cannot obtain information illegally unless you steal it. By going out conducting interviews, whether they be public or private, you obtain the information from somebody else who willingly gave it to you, then you did not do anything illegal. This is why it's so strange to me that they would go after people like Julian Assange and stuff. It's pathetic. It's for them to cover their own ass. And again, that democracy is a danger to us.
Absolutely.
I want to see what they're doing.
Well, they're working.
Police said they raided it over.
Well, they're working. No, they're not working. They are not working. They are killing. Just because they didn't put a gun to her head doesn't mean that's not what they're involved in. Their specific duty at the end of the day is to make sure they come home alive. That means if they have to kill another man for any reason, they will do so. I'm just doing my job.
Claims that the newspaper had obtained information illegally. The paper has consistently denied that. This search warrant, we should note, that was used to raid the home and the paper's office, it has since been withdrawn, and the items seized have been returned. The Kansas Bureau of Investigations is looking at the entire incident.
And though they've been returned, I guarantee you, they copied everything. So they did, in fact, obtain information illegally. The very thing that they accused this newspaper of doing. They obtained information illegally. So let's get on to the next one.
Funny how that works out, huh? Funny how that works out. Well, let me show you how it works. Hyenas going after a hippo. Okay. Hyenas are one, the hippos and other. Guess what? There's some others in this water too. So work smart, not hard. Get it, folks?
It relates to the encampments. The camp system was a world in which the moral rules and practices that governed ordinary German society did not apply. This is where one man's private expression as an ideology of its own, separate and independent, can come to rise within the ranks of another ideology. We're going to see this as it relates to the police. In this new world, governed by the Nazi German morality of pitilessness in the application of violence to subhumans, Nazi German man and Nazi German woman could treat non-Germans as they saw fit. So they went from human to non-human, which put them lower than animals, because even then they had laws against abusing animals in Germany. You couldn't abuse your dog. You couldn't abuse your cattle. You couldn't abuse your livestock, because that went against the economic grain, the societal grain, the moral grain. But if it was a subhuman, you could do as you wish. According to their ideologically informed understanding of their victims and according to their innermost base personal wishes. So it was the ideology that was placated again by one man that then grew growth in a second man and a third man, fourth man, until the seventh man came along. And that was Hitler himself.
And this is the dehumanization, after they outsourced the enforcement to the citizenry is the one that now uses dehumanization for all of their deeds.
And then all of a sudden it expanded into the entire population because Hitler took it full hilt and marketed it economically for political gain, for control. In the location of the camp system, Nazism gave them full freedom to do so. In other words, all you had to do was determine through your own discernment whether the other man or woman was in fact a Jew or not. So now you can use your private ideology in an argument and take a statement, whether that man or woman is Jew or not, and make it a Jewish statement, and therefore a statement of hatred, and therefore assert your own determination that as a Jew he was subhuman and you could just literally reach out and kill him, and no one would give you any qualms.
Matter of fact, you could probably get an award for it.
That's sick. The third central feature of the camp system was its transformation.
In some cases, one-offs, of course, in my opinion,
of the victims to conform to the Nazi image of them. So this is where you go to jail and you're played upon as if though you're a certain class of people. Therefore, you don't get to get up and change your wear every day. If you do, it's the same type of wear or same type of clothing, and it marks you. This is called marketing, even in the private.
Get it, folks?
Prison industry. See, the jails, they subcontract all of their service. They subcontract all of their services to private industry. So even the public jail system is privately supported in all venues. They have to have a private man fill out an employment application to work for them. They have to have a private company fill out a purchase order or accept a purchase order to send supplies to that public institution. Therefore, it's private support on all venues. Every venue in the private supports the public. If you would quit providing the support for those public venues, they wouldn't be able to survive by just doing their job. They could only survive if they were careful to maintain good works. Because if the Second Amendment was actually the First Amendment, it would be a clear and distinct reminder of the right to bear arms as being your armorial right of bearing, your right to have moral bearings.
And so, again, this is your complicity because you don't hold them to the law, because you don't know any better. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. When you know better, you should be impugning that upon them. When you know with reason and logic, without regulation, without laws, but with reason and logic, that they're not acting correctly, that they're out of line, there's got to be a mechanism in you that says, hey, wait a minute, I need to speak up. Where is it?
and not be classified as subhuman. Part 3, police battalions, ordinary Germans, willing killers. Like we saw in that video, I guarantee you those officers would have had no problem killing that woman. And they have no problem with the fact that the woman died the day after they assaulted her.
And they have no problem claiming that she was trying to run him over, shoot at her, instead of using the identification system that they have that is normal, has been normalized, so that they can execute those search warrants, so they can hunt them down by that identification, namely the license plate of the very car that she was in. There is no need to kill a 1-year-old baby. None.
This here is a quote from one of the German police officers from World War II during his interview, his interrogation. I would also like to say that it did not at all occur to me that these orders could be unjust. You placate Christianity, wherein the scripture says, thou shalt not kill. Yet somehow you think because a man tells you you can, now all of a sudden you're justified and couldn't see it as being unjust.
Yes, and so in this case that I'm speaking about, where the woman tried to get away from Walmart and an officer posed that she was trying to run him over and therefore he shot. He feels no guilt that that baby got shot. He was doing it in a line of duty. He was just doing his job. He has no moral regret. Went upon continuing on with his job. Then they put him on leave. I can only imagine he's probably going to get a promotion after this, the way this system works. It's sad, but if you don't understand that reality, then it's sad for you. I feel very bad for you if you don't see that reality.
I think you've fallen away from the true ideology. And that's the problem with placating to these private ideologies that form and build into the general population. Gay, lesbian rights, civil rights, feminist rights. Now we have transgender. And all it does is lead to protests and violence. You have to get away from the false ideologies of creating a new idol that will then go up in front of the world in an advertisement and say, hi, I'm a woman, and ruin a beer commercial. Now we see where the transgender has become non-economical and is a blight on the commercial society. Oops. Do you see it happening again, folks? What's going on, Danielle? That seems like it put a thought in your mind.
Well, yeah, I have other thoughts, but also looking at your live chat, and I want to call Channel 3 out. If he can come up here, I would love how he could proclaim that all Jews are Zionists and that we are supremacists, because I'm Hebrew. Yes, sir. We are open to midnight. Shalom. So I know I'm not a supremacist. I know I'm not a Zionist. Yet he's proclaiming that we all are. So it's kind of bigotry, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, and that's
he's talking to somebody in chat on the original series that I did here. This is not in this channel, in this streams chat. He was Channel 3 says the Jews are the true supremacists, and in a sense, some of them do think that way. I think that's accurately stated. Some of them, but not all of them, for sure. Like Danielle says.
Public Law 97-280 proclaims that the scriptures of the 1611 King James Bible are the foundation of their very own Constitution, which claims supreme law of the land. That's the supremacy. They talk about the supremacy clause, yet in all of that supremeness, they don't mention God but once.
And this is why I would hope people would learn that Constitution and understand both the 9th and 10th. Particularly in the 9th says that there are certain powers that the people have that are not enumerated, can't be enumerated, and that is the subjugation of that very population. In the 10th Amendment, it states clearly that that which is not allowed in the U.S. Constitution is therefore reserved to be allowed in the state's constitution or the people. And that's what I'm saying. It's the people's priority and duty to throw off a despotic government when they claim that they have authority over the people, when that is not actually true. People, it's in your mind. You have to learn how to be self-governing instead of falling for the paying tribute to the false patriarch to govern your mentality for you. You have to come out of that cloud.
Declaration of Independence, right? So where is the supreme? Was it left behind? And now you have this new ideology of supreme law of the land. Again, that's like the unum sanctum. That's blasphemy. There was already a law of the land. The land shall not be sold forever, for it is mine. End of story. End of story. Pure and simple.
And just like there was set forth prior, the Pope can't claim the souls of men. That was already done by the resurrection of Christ. Christ saved all men's souls, redeemed them from sin. All they have to do is seek God. Not even Jesus, just God. That's, in my opinion, my interpretation.
So let's finish on with this quote. It says, "It is true that I know that it is also the duty of police to protect the innocent. But I was then of the conviction that the Jews were not innocent, but guilty." You cannot proclaim that you're so indoctrinated if you're a Christian, Jew, or Muslim, and knowing the Supreme Lord, and then say that somehow an innocent child of that God is now guilty. Guilty of what? Did God pass down that judgment as the scripture says? Or is that the judgment of a man that we're supposed to rise up and condemn? See, I don't know how this entire German society, placating that they were Christians and Catholic, and I came from a very deep-seated Catholic family. My dad had 13 brothers and sisters on the German side. My mom was Scottish, and she had 7 brothers and sisters. Come from big families. A lot of people knowing the scripture. I don't know how they could know the scripture and placate this kind of a comment. I was of the conviction that they were guilty and not innocent. How can you say that if you're a scriptural man? Basing the very fact that the Jews are the blight of the society, and that's the only way that Christianity can advance. It's just dumbfounding to me. So it goes on, "I believe the propaganda that all Jews were criminals and subhumans, and that they were the cause of Germany's decline after the First World War. This is an excuse of his own to be able to get out of what he was caught in. And people of today will do the same thing." And again, notice none of these people mention the scriptures in their interviews. I haven't read one interview from any of these Nazi people. That talked about scripture. They lost that
They
ideology.
seem to be completely absorbed in the idea that they are indeed the body, not the spirit.
Yeah,
within the body.
Exactly.
Mm.
They're running on the manual mechanization rather than the spiritual credence. The thought that one should disobey or evade the order to participate in the extermination of the Jews did not therefore enter my mind at all. Therefore did not enter my mind at all. I'd like to know what his feeling was when he shot his first victim. I'd like to know what his feeling was if that first victim was a child or a woman. The next one, police battalions, agents of genocide. And like I said, that's what we have going on today. These people at the lowest level, the police officers, are the ones that are enforcing the policies that you're making by voting their leaders into position so that they can take orders from them and say, well, you gave them the authority, so here we are.
And everybody else behind them is signing off. The prosecutor, the clerk, the judge, the magistrates, all of them. All the way up the line. They're all just signing off. Somebody else did it. It's somebody else's responsibility. Pass it up the line. When does it get to the top? When do you realize you are the superior civilian over all of these different agents? As a private man, you have so much more authority and you just don't comprehend it.
Dummies. The order police was as integral to the commission of the Holocaust as the Einsatzgruppen and the SS were. It was composed of the uniformed police, the Schutzpolizei, under which police battalions operated, and the Gendarmerie, rural police. Police battalions were the branch of the order police most intimately involved in the genocide. Their mobility made them, unlike the other parts of the order police, a flexible, general instrument for implementing genocidal policies. See, they implement the policies at a local level, folks. That's where they start them out. You don't have a big army that comes in. The police start going from door to door and knocking on doors. You know, while you're sitting there watching your boob tube, stuffing your face with processed foods and drinking poison liquids. And then all of a sudden you see the lights and you hear the sirens, you look out, and I'll be damned if they're not down the street a couple blocks arresting one of your neighbors. You don't know why. You don't care why. You just go back to the boob tube because that's such a great life, because it's so much more important than your life, because you ain't got nothing better to do than sit back and watch somebody else's life on a boob tube. The next night, same thing. You look out the window, interrupted from your boob tube, temporarily to look out, and a block down the street, they're arresting another one. The next night, the same thing. They're across the street. The next night, the same thing. They're right next door. When do you think they're going to come after you? You're the one telling them. You're the one.
I want to add something to that with you, Keith, if that's all right.
Sure.
Just interesting. Like yesterday in the local town here, we had a big to-do kind of festival where all our local police dudes showed up, and I ended up having a conversation with one of them regarding some folks that are stealing property around the city. And the concept, the idea of citizen's arrest came up in the conversation. And this police officer said, well, did you know that citizen's arrest was suspended in New Mexico 4 years ago? I said, wow, that's quite an interesting concept. Could you point to specifically where that happened, or what code, what statute? Because that's news to me. I've been here for nearly 25 years and I never heard such a thing. No, he couldn't speak to it, but supposedly someone told him that, and then he repeated it.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing about rhetoric. You know, I heard this, and so I'm going to pose it as true and factual because I'm wearing a badge and I can do so.
To me, so I got on my bicycle,
and that's how the ideology that they got rid of citizen's arrest starts. One man says it. Another man hears it, says, oh, okay, and repeats it. And next thing you know, it's nothing but a repetition. And all of a sudden, the ideology is expressed in the public. And, oh, okay, yeah, let's get rid of citizen arrest. That makes sense.
Well, I wanted to disprove him to myself. You know, and I guess for everyone who would be concerned with such a thing being said, I went down to the sheriff's department and I explained to him what I had heard from that officer. And he said, well, as far as I know, that guy's full of crap. As far as I can tell, in my knowledge, you appear to me to be a civilian, and the civilians have control of this government here, and you have more authority than I do to arrest any citizen that you know is acting a fool in front of you, and we only ask that you give us a call before you do it.
Yep,
and
that's absolutely correct, because the structure of government, if you look up the structure of government in your state, you're going to find it at the top of the structure. It says the people, whether it be the people of the Republic of Iowa or the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, it's going to be the people. And then
the first two words, the people.
And it's going to have
I think the local, that they're making a distinction between, you know, like the sheriff is quite a different organization than the police, enforcing the municipal codes and all of that. And I think in the minds of people that they don't really know the difference, they seem to be, you know, thinking like, well, you know, they have equal authority, jurisdiction, knowledge, and it's not the case at all.
The sheriff is the go-between between the people and the rest of the government structure. And the rest of the government structure, if you go down from the people, it's going to split off into two branches. One's going to be administrative and one's going to be judicial. Then it's going to split off and go straight below that, and it's going to open up across the board as executive.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the sheriff.
Well, I'm going to go have a conversation on Monday with the mayor and make sure that his employees are not fabricating and creating lies and like that in the future. But yeah, I just thought to bring that up because, you know, this is where it starts with this misinformation being given to otherwise innocent people that don't really know anything.
Yep, absolutely. And when we think about the sheriff as the go-between, he's the go-between between the people and the government, the rest of the government structure at the administrative judicial point. So when we communicate with these people, we have to make sure that the discretion is we're not part of the judicial or the administrative. We are above both of them. We execute our own values, and that is surpassing the administration and the judicial determination that they make as a par value, which is a partial value, and we are a whole value. And when we placate to that government, we lose that whole value. And that's what the redemption is about, is making us whole again, putting us back in the position that we're meant to be in. And again, that's where I say that the name, the ad hominem, is the very institution of dispositioning a man from his spirituality.
The normalization of identification verification, verifying who you are, because you don't know thyself. You can't express it in any other way than to let some third party issue an ID so you can present it to somebody else so that they can discuss you as a third party in a first person and second person discussion of accusation and guilt. Well, what's he guilty of? Well, let's look in our language here and see what kind of rhetoric we can use on him. He already gave us the ID. That's personal jurisdiction.
Greetings again, Daniel.
Welcome. Thank you.
Had to move, huh?
Yeah, my internet. On the weekends, it gets bogged down.
Yeah, I hear you. So the next thing here is says police battalions were a branch of the order police most intimately involved in the genocide. And again, that's because it's the police that we call on a local level for any problem. We don't at the local level call the federal marshals. We call the local police. And actually what we do is we call the local dispatch. And then through the communication with the dispatch determines whether they're going to send emergency medical or emergency police or sheriff or whatever. So we have to realize the police, we're giving the police a main portion of the power in all venues, because that's what's going to be incorporated first when anything happens.
There's generally a psychologist that sits along with that dispatch 24 hours a day, giving counsel to the dispatch person.
I can imagine
in many police stations. I think most of them, if they have the psychologist there, they're supposed to have it to determine what type of units they need to dispatch.
Which would behoove you to understand that they're always going to dispatch the police first, no matter what. So be aware of calling 911 to get help in certain situations where you're dealing with mental issues, mental breakdowns. It would be very disheartening if you, in good faith, made that call and it wasn't clear and distinct that, there's a emotional breakdown going on. That you have somebody that has the mental capabilities to observe it and work with it rather than stand there and point a gun at them or even a taser. Heaven forbid we keep killing innocent people.
Yeah, and like we mentioned the other day, as it relates to the transgender topic, if you get a 911 call and you get this deep guttural voice with a nut bobbing up and down in his throat, talking about, I'm hemorrhaging, just too thick this month, you know it's insanity, and you know you should send a white coat doctor to strap him up and send him into a padded room. Otherwise, if you respond to the call as an EMT, expecting that you're going to have a woman in profuse bleeding because of menstrual disorganization or some kind of problem with their menstrual stream, you get there and there's a 6.5-foot guy that's 300 pounds and got an Adam's apple 3 inches outside of his throat with a nutsack hanging 3 inches down from his ass. You might not want to be checking his menstrual flow. You might want to give him a menstrual flow. See, when an EMT goes to a situation like that and there's not a communication in there that came from a transgender or something, something's wrong, and it could cause a disagreement, and that EMT would be in his right mind to, in a moment of insanity, kill the transgender that was trying to come onto him while he's having a bleeding out. That's just fuck.
And so the 911 call wouldn't be sending out a paramedic that doesn't have the psychological degree to deal with the psychological issue. Okay, so we have to have a greater discernment in these authoritative places when we're taking these 911 calls for damn sure.
And insanity. Why would a dispatch an EMT to some situation like that? We have to learn how to use our own discernment in every situation and quit placating that there is any such thing as transgender. I don't care if you feel gay. You can't be gay. I don't care if you feel lesbian. You can't be lesbian. You can have sex with somebody, but the lesbian part, that ad hominem, is a name. It's not you. So you can feel.
It's something to classify, to categorize, so that they can track you. How do you identify? That's the new one. See, they've already got you convinced that you have to have an ID. Now they want you to identify outside of the ID. How do you identify? He, she, he, they, them. Third person? Oh, then you don't want to be involved in the conversation. See, when people don't understand what pronouns are and how to actually use them in their grammar, and the rhetoric gets all failed up because their mind is all fucked up and they want to identify themselves as transgender. Sorry, you misunderstood English.
Feel gay all you want. I have no problem with that. But quit trying to tell me I have to associate with you as being gay. I associate with you as being a child of God. And I hope one day I can reconcile your mentality to come out of your fucking enslavement of that ad hominem, thinking that's what your life is about, because it's not. Goes on to say their mobility made them unlike other parts of the order police, a flexible general instrument for implementing genocidal policies. And that, again, is because they're at the local level. They're so mobile. Every city has a police department. Not every city has a reserve department. Not every city has a recruiting center. Very few cities have a federal marshal. So again, it's the ad hominems and titles that everybody looks up to and calls to when they have a problem, rather than looking inside themselves and making a solution for that problem by coining their words or pursing their lips. Truly, you can set off an ideology by proving that it's false if you are competent to have that kind of a conversation. But when you get in your emotions and try to force somebody else to claim your pronouns when you don't even know what those pronouns are, and now they're classifying 72 different types of pronouns. I don't know which one you are, and you don't have it tattooed on your fucking forehead. So until then, I'm going to call you brother or sister according to what I observe. See something, say something. The order police grew from a total of 131,000 officers and men on the eve of the war to 310. They almost tripled in size. 2.5 times within just a matter of a couple of years. And that's a lot of police officers for Germany.
I wonder what it's looking like in America. Maybe I should look those stats up and see what they've been doing over the last decades.
And that was by the beginning of 1943, of whom 132,000 were reservists. They were lining up saying, yeah, I'll be glad to execute people. I'll be glad to give up my temporary job to come work for you full time until it's done and over with. That's what you sign up for when you sign up for the reserves. You're reserving a place to do what they tell you. It was a security organization of considerable dimensions and importance. And again, because it's a small enforcement at the local level, the importance and the consideration of that in its volume that it takes place in every city. No city has not a police department. Every last one of them has some kind of police force. Of course, here recently we hear some that are quitting, but I assure you, there were reservists lined up to fill those positions. I'll have to do my research on that, matter of fact, and do some follow-up on some of those cities that got rid of their police department and find out what kind of police department they have now.
Yeah, they can't let the police state be destroyed. You know, it's a statist system. That's how it works. And it's not going to change until you start doing the policing. Until you start doing the citizens' arrests. Until you start maintaining the oversight. You have to do this, folks. Otherwise, you just show your complicity. You show your willingness to go along, to get along, and just do what it takes. Taking the easy way, comfort and convenience, instead of doing what a real man or woman should.
But I assure you, without a police department, you have no policy, because you have no policy enforcers. You just have a bunch of dumb bitch-ass slaves waiting for somebody to come tell them what to do still. The next one says the order police draftees were not auspicious recruits. Most had no...
Not if you already know how to do the policing yourself, like I said. Back in the day, they were called neighborhood watch programs, and they worked effectively for the most part. But then again, you know, the government saw that as a duty for them, so they had to pose a way to overtake that, and now you have cameras on every fucking corner. That's your new neighborhood watch. See, it's kind of like a manipulation through a euphemism instead. And they just took over the duty. Now you have cameras on every corner, but yet you're still screaming because somebody pulls out a phone and starts video recording in public. It's fucking insane, folks.
Military training. Many were marginal physical fodder, as we saw in that video, the big fat guy. Like I said, me at 125, 130 pounds, I guarantee you I can outrun him. And if you look at the police force, you will see many of these people are robust. And their ages and already established family and professional lives made them less pliable than the youngsters whom military and police organizations typically seek. Because before you get a fully matured and oriented mind, they want to get you while you're still young and culpable or malleable so they can form you to their ideology.
What do you think happened with this recent verdict in the stabbing, Austin Metcalf and what's his name? You know, they sent the young man down to prison for a number of years. It's going to ruin his entire life. Yet he started out looked like a reasonable young man, and he simply, in my opinion, made a huge mistake. Of course, but that's all it was a mistake, and he still deserves a good man over his shoulder, which he's likely not going to get behind them walls. Just saying.
And this is happening today in America and many nations around the world, where we have these young police officers with 6 months of training that go in believing that the police enforcement policy supersedes the law that they're supposed to be enforcing. And they don't enforce law, they enforce policy, and under that policy, they placate that they know the law simply because they know a title of the law and then have to look it up to see what the enumeration is, and then don't even bother reading that law. They just say, oh, well, that's interference with government acts. So,
and then don't even follow the policy, because when they get found in mistakes, they cover it up.
Yeah, I'm part of the government, you're interfering, that's what it is. No. That's a policy. That's a policy, and you're using a statute to enforce it. The statute itself, whether it be a statute or executive order, requires contract terms and conditions to implement it. In other words, the one that you're implementing it against has to be willing to voluntarily consent in
contract form. And that's why I say that license is a contract with the state, and they already got you in a contract. You've already contracted to follow that policy. And the state will back him up. Yeah, he presented that ID. We've got personal jurisdiction. Run him through with the rest of the cattle.
Contract form. If that is not made, then you're the one that's false. And every officer that pulls you over alongside the road while you're traveling down the road, whether you've got a plate on the back of that car or not, whether you've got a license in your wallet or not, is violating the law by making contact with you to implement his own private ideology of his discernment of what he thinks the law is, and can never prove it in court. Never. You can't serve someone and be a witness and then try to get on the stand and testify that you don't know the law, but you witnessed him speeding. Can't do it. Not against me. Not anymore. They desire young men for good reason. The experience of millennia teaches that young people are more malleable, more easily turned into integrated bearers of an institution's ethos and practices. So even with its low operational expectations, the order police faced a formidable training task, which made still more difficult by the paucity of training time, owing the pressing need to get the men into the field. So at this point in time, they were using the police force as part of their genocidal operations, which was part of their operations to take over the world. So they used a very local and minuscule power of a police force to expand upon the world. And that police.
And what do you think they're doing today in America when they militarize the police by offering their military surplus to the various different police departments at cutthroat rates? What do you think they're doing with all these tanks and stuff? Why do you think a local police force needs that stuff? Do we have these huge militia groups of some sort that they need to fight? I mean, even in America, I don't think the militia has that. When they call forth or anything, they call the military. They don't call private citizens, which is the true militia. You get it, folks? Military's contract too. All of it's contract.
Police force is pushing again, like I said, in modern times, just like back then, nothing but policy. And you keep voting for those policies. You keep voting for them to vote out plastic straws and paper wraps so you can start using paper straws and plastic wraps while totally ignoring the plastic cup and plastic lid that you insert that plastic straw into in order to even use it. It's just idiocy. Then the last one I've got here for this section for tonight is the order police as a whole or particularly the police reserve, which stocked the police battalions, were not elite institutions. See, they get the lower people with the lower mentalities that are much more willing to agree to, yeah, I want to kill my neighbor. I've been living next to him all my life, the fucking Jew. Well, now we got a law that says we can kill the Jew because they're the blight of society. Great. Now I can go kill my Jew who's a neighbor. And since his house is empty, now I got a second house that I can sell to the next one that wants to come along and buy it. See how ridiculous this stuff is? That's what it propagates. And
it is the fomentation of foreign asset control, which is regulated under the Trading with the Enemies Act of the United States federal government. You guys don't understand World War I and World War II and how that went down as it relates to the German Reich. 1970, Sir Duke Ferdinand was off as a assassination of Austria. Germany and Austria were the last two German states left out of 23 that took over after the Roman Empire fell. The Holy Roman Empire fell, and the Royal German Empire rose. 23 states. And by the time World War II came around, there was just Austria and Germany left. They'd already taken care of the other 21 through previous incidents. Learn your history, folks. It's all a he said, she said stuff on an international level, and nobody realizes what's going on because nobody understands what they're saying themselves. Don't do any research. Certainly don't know grammar, concise English. Just doing your job.
Voting for it, still today. The age profile was highly unmilitary. The men were unusually old for military institutions, but training was insufficient. A large portion of the men that it chose had managed to stave off more military service, indicating certainly no great disposition of military discipline and activities, including killing. See, if you're in the military, there's supposed to be an element of honor if you kill somebody. They have to be a true enemy. They have to be a true blight. They have to be a destructive force. The Jews were none of those. The transgenders are none of those. The gays and lesbians.
Can you imagine going around shooting women and children that absolutely have nothing to do with the war, have nothing to do with the supposed blight, and you just do it because somebody gave you that power of authority to do so? Imagine what kind of evil exists in people like that.
Are none of those. The women are none of those. When it comes to civil rights, Mexicans, Irish, Black, it doesn't matter. Those are ad hominems, and they refer to a record of history so that they can place a certain people in history as a positive or negative according to that history's value system. What do you got, guys, before we close out?
It's an hour passed already. It's pretty fast. It's a fascinating subject matter, Keith. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I don't know why people don't. Well, I do know why people don't understand it. It's because they don't know it. They don't read it. They don't care to read it. They're involved in their own little lives. And that own little life is a selfish life where they don't care about their neighbors. So they don't placate to know the neighbor's history. They don't placate that their children need to know their neighbor's history. So they don't care if they make passing grades in school or not. And if they do, goodness gracious, they've just been indoctrinated just as much as they were. So why not? And that's the true sadness of the story, is that we all end up in this manual machination of a society that has somebody else telling us they're our authority, and we believe it, even though the scripture says otherwise. And that's our true faith. Why are we giving?
There is no power but that which is ordained by God. And if you comprehend that power, you don't let somebody lie to you in any way. Even if it does make it feel comfy, because now you've got this one up on another man. Because that again is against that scripture of owe no man anything but to love one another, for to love one another is to fulfill the law. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Why do we keep doing this shit? How many eons is it going to take for mankind to learn?
Up our true faith to live in this materialistic world in fear. It doesn't make sense to me anymore. For a while, like I said, I was a fool. I was a bitch-ass slave. And a lot of it seemed to make sense. And again, you know, I'm not a stupid man, I would think. I would hope that you don't think I'm insane or a lunatic or crazy or psychotic in some way. But that's the way we tend to look at our neighbors when we start using those ad hominems. Oh, he's a transgender. I don't like him much. Oh, he's gay. I don't like him much. Oh, he's black. I don't like him much. She's a bitch. I don't like her much. I don't like none of you.
That's simply an escape from thinking, isn't it?
Yes, it's an excuse. And like I said, I don't like none of you. You make shitty people or shitty persons. You may be good men and women, but you make shitty persons.
It's that personality and being in that popularity contest. You're really shitty at it. That's what I'm talking about. At least in my eyes, I see through the facades when the clerk tells me she's just doing her job down at the courthouse. And I know better because she refuses to hold the integrity of the record where it's supposed to be until I show her by statute and by rule. Oh, that's why I have to tell those people pointing at my mustache that I'm not going to shave it off until I see people acting like true Americans around here. Because last I knew, we don't allow Hitler's willing executioners in our buildings. This is pathetic.
That's for sure.
So we have to realize, you know, there's going to come a point in time where because you're just doing your job, somebody up the line from you might give you an order to say, hey, we need you to go over to this address and take care of this situation at all means necessary. It means you need to kill the residents, the occupiers, if that's what it takes. And you get there and find out it's your mom and dad. What are you going to do then?
Maybe they have to kill the investment firms because the investment firms aren't very good investments for them at this point or something.
Yeah.
See, some people don't realize how close to home it hits. You know, they back the blue until it happens to you, right? Keep backing them. Keep backing the blue until it happens to you. Because like I said, everybody in those court systems will sign on for them, the clerks included, until you point it out to them. And even then, when you point it out to them, they're just going to deny it. Go ahead with a voluntary dismissal against the rules. Not handing down the merits of the case against state statute. Adjudging the cost to the defendant, even though there was a dismissal, again, against state statute, case law codes. They just ramrod people through there like they're cattle. First-hand experience here, folks. Current. This wrongful constructive conviction or eviction that we're going through. It's got its stuff. It's got us struggling, folks. So be sure to go ahead and
man up, slaves, and hit those buttons, or I'll send ice.
And of course, there's always a PayPal link just below for anybody that would care to share some love. All is appreciated. We are struggling because of that constructive eviction. Just saying.
That's why I said earlier in the writing, it talks about the economical blight. They were blaming the Jews for an economical depression and saying that they had no value. So they concentrated them up in one place, gave them no value, and then made an economic production out of it by making them slaves. So now they're of value. So now, by having zero value themselves and having to spend very little on them, including in food, they just worked them until they couldn't work anymore, and that was an easy solution. Then just kill them.
Well, it's become a lot more subtle now, the killing, because you know the Nuremberg trials didn't work out so well. So now they have a very subtle way of doing the same thing. Apparently,
well, yeah, and that's you know, again, at the local police level, they're still doing it. It's a private industry, and they're feeding them fucked up food. The longer that they can keep them in custody, feeding them that fucked up food, the more it calcifies their pineal gland, the more it sets off their chemical balance, and the more successful that system is going to be to drag that person back into that prison system again. That's why we have so many repeat offenders in the first place. Because if they're dumb enough not to realize that the position that they're in is because of their own behavior, by making false claims of residency and ideologies that they really don't believe in, or aren't sound and true, and they've not done their appropriate research to make sure that that ideology that they're following is true, then they're going to keep placating that I got to pay taxes and I got to do this and I got to do that. And if they come arrest me, I got to go spend my time in prison. And you don't.
You know what the cops around here, if they're not going after so-called traffic offenders, they're managing all these disenfranchised citizens that are addicted to crack cocaine and other substances that are being put out here on the street.
Yeah.
And
yep. Yeah, that's a large part due, I think, because of the vaccinations and medical society itself. Again, placating that we need such a large medical society is an indication and implication that we have a large medical problem. Whereas if people would take that problem and handle it themselves instead of going to a doctor and professing that they've got the flu, and then the doctor does some tests and says, oh, yeah, you've got the flu. Yeah.
See, and like it says, doesn't matter. It's got a statement there up in the actual video that we're reviewing. It says they always need a boogeyman to fight to get it done. Yes, that's the other guy, the bad guy. They always need the bad guy to get it done.
That's what it is. You're idiots. You're the ones making your own diagnosis and then going to the doctor and telling them about that diagnosis. So you are truly the doctor.
They're also casting spells too.
Yes. If you really want to heal yourself, then get back to your mother nature. That is your medicine cabinet.
Know thyself, heal thyself.
All right. Well, anything else before we head out, guys? Final words.
I'm gonna send you an interesting little thing that I found today. Just I'll take a copy of it and send it to you. But it's a COVID-19 record card from the CDC, laying in the middle of the road, and says some really interesting things on the back of it, and little record on the front.
Yeah.
It's, it's really speaking to what you're saying about, people just sign up for this nonsense. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this one has a record of this person's 3 vaccinations that he got over a 6 month period.
Wow.
Yeah, 6 month period. Oh my God. That's ridiculous. Just totally ridiculous. Folks, pay attention. Pay attention.
Know thyself. Heal thyself.
That was when I was quite a bit younger, but you can still do it, folks. If you want to raise up a good, solid young man, you got to be a good, solid man yourself. Know thyself, heal thyself. Present yourself well in your true nature. Your physical build, it doesn't have to be massive or anything. Just be solid. And in that, no, you have to be as solid in that as you are in your spirit. They have to match.
Right? And then it says Pfizer F pussy, Pfizer something else for the second one, and then Moderna or whatever, right? But they're keeping these records, and then they give the person the card, which basically, makes them their product or whatever. It's I looked up all the websites on the card, and oh my gosh, it's like such a sinister thing. I didn't even know that this was happening because, of course, I don't pay attention to that narrative or whatever. But kind of strange that people sign up for this junk.
Yeah, you will find amazing things if you just open your eyes and look. And that's the thing about observing. You've got to be able to observe before you can take it in and contemplate it and then turn around and report it. Observe, record, and report. Get used to it.
I think God gave everyone a brain to think with, but they're few elect to develop that capacity, unfortunately.
Yeah, and that's the indoctrination.
The indoctrination, absolutely. And this is where we got to learn, folks. Work smart, not hard. Work smart, not hard.
Propaganda, the vaccinations, the society is slowly but surely getting dumber and dumber. Now, granted, at a large portion, the society is getting dumber and dumber, but at the same time, we still end up producing people that are highly intelligent, I remember a gal down in Texas that was born. She had like supposedly a 200 some IQ. So there are still people that are born with high IQs and supersede the vaccinations and all the different problems of society, but it's very few, and it's going to take a lot more. So again, we have to overcome the stupidity of society, and we can only do that individually. If we do it collectively by taking upon the ideologies that everybody else is holding, all we're doing is dumbfounding ourselves. There is no solution in that.
And I know for a fact, from my observation only, of course, that we have much more intelligent people in the private sector than we do in these public offices and stuff. Just saying.
You have to have your own discernment.
Well, the IQ thing too, like there's this idea that goes around, you know, that the people kind of, they're bound by their IQ, but I found that's not really the case. Someone that's not scoring high as an IQ, they with some work, they could actually, you know, improve their IQ quite a bit.
I've taken that test 3 times according to the record, for competencies, just like Paul when I was 12 years old, another one when I was 19, and then another one when I was 33. And all 3 times it increased. The first one said I had an IQ of 141, something like that. The next one was 145. The next one was 148. So it just gradually climbed over those years. And I imagine if I did another one today, it'd probably show another increase. I don't know. I don't care. All I know is I'm going to do what I can.
Well, according to some rules that I read, like your IQ would be too high to be a cop, because they can't hire a man with an IQ that's over 3 digits.
Yeah, they want somebody that's dumb enough to listen.
Yeah, dumb enough to listen to everybody else, giving them the authority. The ones that are unable to actually think for themselves outside of the box and outside of the authority posed and use their true authority. Owe no man anything but to love one another, for to love one another is to fulfill the law. No one wants to put themselves in somebody else's shoes, because that might be detrimental to their paycheck. They wouldn't really be doing their job.
Into their orders and kill people.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. All right. Well, with that, I want everybody to know. You got anything else to say, Danielle?
Yeah. When you were talking about the camps and all that stuff, that made me think of how deeply rooted that actually is in society, because especially in America, that's how basically the birth of Chinatown was created, or the Italian section, and so on and so forth. When people came over to so-called the land of opportunity and whatnot, they were all basically forced to continue to live with each other, which is in itself an internment camp. And one could look at it that way.
Well, and on the other side of the coin, here in Waterloo, for instance, down along the riverbank, there was an old encampment of Irish people when they were building the town. And because the town was growing and there weren't enough houses yet, so they automatically, naturally encamped together in one spot. So again, it's that ideology of protecting ourselves placates to the next man that it's all right to put them in an encampment for their own protection.
Yeah, see, it's safety in numbers is the basic instinct. So therefore, it's gratified as being okay when you have a bunch of natives put on a reservation.
You see how that works? So it's quite interesting mechanism of our own nature to gather in groups and segregate ourselves according to that nature. And that's what the rest of society will use against us. And that's because we use it in our own introspective views as an association. And so when they create these ideologies that exclude an association or a class of people, they create a new class of people. And it's a mirrored objective image that says the polar opposite of what that person is or that group of people is. So again, it's like the Christianity coming about as a truncation of Judaism, and then turns around and cuts off their own root. If a plant was living and moving, I don't know that it would cut off its own root.
That's the natives. Find out how many of them will tell you if they're a Christian or not.
And that's what people seem to think they can do, is cut out their own roots. So we really have to be considerate about what we're doing as it relates to our own ideologies, and whether it's believing somebody else's ideology. You know, one man's ideology grows and grows and grows if it becomes popular. And it doesn't have to be right to be popular. It just has to have some kind of popularity, a sense of a greater feeling amongst a greater group of people. So I urge everybody to start being careful to maintain good works. Quit the job shit. You don't need a job. You need to maintain care. You need to be able to be careful to maintain good works.
And in those good works, you all know it.
What you looking at? You're all a bunch of fucking assholes. You know why? You don't have the guts to be what you want to be? You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy. So what that make you? Good? You're not good. You just know how to hide, how to lie. Me, I don't have that problem. Me, I always tell the truth, even when I lie. So say goodnight to the bad guy. Come on. The last time you're gonna see a bad guy like this again, let me tell you. Come on. Make way for the bad guy. Man up, slaves, and hit those buttons, or I'll send ice.
Let's try that again. Misplayed that one.
Man up, slaves, and hit those buttons, or I'll send ice.
And with that, folks, I want to thank everybody for joining me for this review. We'll be back hopefully tomorrow or the next day with the next part, part 13, and possibly a couple others. They're a little bit shorter parts. So we'll see how that works out. And again, if you don't mind, there's a PayPal link down there for anybody that would care to share some love. Like I said, we went through a constructive eviction that's put us on hard times, and we are really struggling. Every little bit helps. All is appreciated. Be blessed and have a great night, everybody.